The coffee hit my face like a slap. Hot, bitter, public. Gasps echoed through the first-class cabin as the uniform I wore for 3 silent months soaked in humiliation. "You're not welcome here," he sneered, smirking like a man who thought he ruled the sky. I didn't flinch. I didn't shout. I just smiled. Because in 37 seconds the game would change, and when I spoke, every career in that cabin would tremble. My name is Alexis Brooks, CEO of Avora Airlines, and this is where the reckoning begins. The cabin was perfectly climate-controlled, but the air had gone cold. You could feel it the moment the hot liquid struck my cheek. Coffee, deliberately poured, not spilled. Gasps rose like turbulence, scattered through the first-class cabin as passengers looked up from tablets and newspapers, their expressions suspended between confusion and disbelief. "Watch where you're going, rookie," Rick Donovan barked, holding the now empty pot like a weapon. The sharp scent of dark roast clung to my soaked collar. My white blouse, pressed and perfect only moments before, was now a battlefield of coffee stains. His smirk was theatrical, designed for the audience. Silence expanded like cabin pressure dropping. No one moved. No one intervened. They just watched. They always watched. I didn't blink. Not even as the burning soaked through the thin layer of synthetic fabric and into my skin. My hands, by muscle memory, steadied the tray I hadn't even been holding when he accidentally tripped. I didn't speak. I looked at him, right into his eyes. Rick expected fear, or shame, or the quiet, resigned compliance of someone low in rank, low in value. What he got instead was stillness, and a gaze that said, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Apologize to the gentleman in 2A, Rick snapped, loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "You almost scalded him too." The gentleman in 2A, an elderly man in a pinstripe suit, glanced uncomfortably between us. I think she was just standing here, actually." Rick didn't let him finish. "You're new, Williams, and clearly not trained for premium service." I could feel the eyes behind the curtains in main cabin. Some crew were definitely listening in. Diane was probably smirking from the galley, sipping tea while enjoying her show. She never liked that I'd been placed in first-class rotation so soon. And now, her boss was reminding everyone, who ran this domain in the sky. I looked down at the mess on my uniform. My fingers flexed once. Then calmly, I reached for a napkin, dabbed my cheek with deliberate poise, and smiled faintly. "Of course," I said quietly. "I'll fix it." Then I turned to the passenger, who still looked mortified, and offered him a fresh towel with both hands. "I'm very sorry for the disruption, sir. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make your flight more comfortable." His eyes softened. "It's not your fault," he whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. Rick cleared his throat. "Back to service." I nodded and moved to the galley. I could feel the heat of his gaze tracking me, like a hunter watching an animal that didn't flee as expected. Behind the curtain, I set the tray down. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from restraint. My heart was steady, though. I'd trained it for this, all of this. 3 months. 3 months of flying under a different name. 3 months of smiling through backhanded compliments, selective assignments, and fake camaraderie. 3 months of watching people like Rick treat passengers differently based on the shade of their skin or the status on their ticket. And now, with one pot of coffee, he'd given me exactly what I needed. A moment. A public moment. I pulled a dry cloth from the drawer and pressed it to my chest, feeling the sting fade. Not the coffee. No, that heat had already passed. What remained was purpose, boiling just beneath the surface. In seat 3D, a black woman in her 50s, diamond status pin on her lapel, watched me silently. She had seen it all. Her eyes met mine and gave a slow nod. She knew. Maybe not who I was, but what I was doing. That I didn't bow. That I didn't lash out. I endured. And in enduring, I built my case. Because this wasn't about one insult, one spill, or one power-tripping senior crew member. It was about a system, a culture, and it was about to collapse. 15 minutes later, the drink service resumed. Rick took over my aisle with exaggerated flair, performing for his regulars, the old money clients he always fawned over. He called them by name, asked about their kids, their portfolios, their golf handicaps. When he passed seat 2C, where a black tech entrepreneur I recognized from our manifest was seated, Rick barely made eye contact. "Drink?" he asked, already turning away. The man glanced at me as if to say, "Is this how you treat all your elite clients?" I gave him a discreet nod and mouthed, "I'll return shortly." Rick didn't notice. He never noticed the ones he didn't value. As I returned to the galley, Diane passed me with a grin too wide to be friendly. "Rough morning," she chirped. "First class isn't for everyone, you know." "Thanks for the advice," I said, maintaining the perfect temperature of indifference. She leaned closer. "Word is, Rick's thinking of requesting someone else on his team next month. Maybe someone more traditional." I raised an eyebrow. "Traditional?" "You know, who understands the clientele." She patted my shoulder with mock sympathy. "It's not personal." "No," I thought. "It's systemic, and I'm going to destroy it." As the plane cruised smoothly toward New York, I ran through my mental checklist. The cameras were working. The mic in my name badge was capturing everything. Rick's tone, Diane's comments, even the passenger interactions. I had 2 weeks left, 2 weeks before I'd deliver my findings to the board. But now, Rick had escalated things, and that might just move the timeline up. Because this wasn't just about patterns anymore. He'd made it personal, he'd made it public, and that meant it was finally time to start the takedown. Not from the boardroom, not with memos, but from 35,000 feet, right where the rot had taken root. 3 months earlier, the view from the corner office on the 58th floor of the Avora Tower was as flawless as ever. Crystal skyline, golden sunlight, and aircrafts slicing across the clouds in perfect formation. But Alexis Brooks didn't see any of it. She was staring at a report on her desk. Not the quarterly revenue charts or market share projections. No, this one was different. This one came in a plain manila folder, unmarked except for a handwritten note clipped to the front. Sensitive, internal eyes only. Inside, transcripts of customer complaints, anonymized but painfully consistent. Felt ignored despite diamond status. Asked for a drink, was skipped over. Passenger next to me was served immediately. Subtle comments about how I could afford first class. Each entry logged on transcontinental routes. Atlanta to New York, LA, Chicago. Each from passengers of color. Each involving the same set of crews. Alexis leaned back in her chair, her sharp bob grazing her collarbone. At 35, she was the youngest CEO in the airline's history and the first black woman to lead a major U.S. carrier. Her rise was no accident. She'd earned it through blood, sweat, and an iron will that had crushed every glass ceiling she encountered. But now, she was reading evidence that her airline, her pride, had rotted from within. A soft knock pulled her attention. "Come in." Her assistant, Neil, stepped inside with a tablet in hand. "Board pre-brief in 20. Want me to pull the Q2 figures again?" She nodded absently. "In a minute." Neil lingered. "Everything okay?" Alexis tapped the folder. "Ever get the sense that something's broken, but too quiet to hear?" Neil raised an eyebrow. "Like an engine that hums wrong?" She offered a faint smile. "Exactly." That evening, she sat in her penthouse kitchen, glass of Merlot untouched, eyes locked on the same folder. The system had failed. Not in profits, Avora was soaring, but in principle. The culture she'd spent years building was being corroded from the inside by people who wore the uniform but rejected the mission. She could issue memos, launch another DEI initiative, or worse, hire a consulting firm to make it all look better. But none of it would touch the truth. Because truth, she knew, hid itself the moment it felt watched. And that's when the idea took root. Not a press release, not an audit. Undercover. She closed the folder slowly and reached for her phone. The next morning, Alexis sat across from her general counsel, Elise Tanaka, in a private conference room. "You want a what?" Elise blinked. "Enroll in flight attendant training. Anonymously. Work the premium routes. Get inside." Elise leaned forward. "Alexis, you're the CEO of the company. There are optics, liabilities, which is exactly why it has to be airtight," Alexis interrupted. "No board member can know. No VPs, no one." "Except me?" Elise asked. "And Neil. That's it." Elise folded her arms. "You're serious?" Alexis nodded. "Our core customers, the ones we market as loyalists, are being treated differently. That's a cancer, and we both know cancer doesn't show up on a PowerPoint slide." She slid a folder across the table. "Elise, I need a clean alias. Background story, digital footprint, transfer paperwork. I'll train in Dallas under the name Kennedy Williams. Hospitality background, mid-career switch, nothing flashy. It has to be bulletproof." Elise exhaled. "You're gambling a lot. I'm saving something more." Weeks later, the transformation was complete. Gone was the tailored Armani. Gone were the signature pearls, the custom briefcase. In their place, a plain black carry-on, department store slacks, a generic ID badge clipped to a Navy uniform. At the Avora Training Center in Dallas, Kennedy Williams was just another name on the roster. She arrived early every day, stayed late, memorized safety manuals, learned evacuation protocols. She took notes like her life depended on it, because in a way, it did. Not hers, but the life of the company she'd built, the culture she believed in. In training, she met Tammy, a former teacher with a heart of gold. Jordan, a vet turned steward with quiet integrity. And Sophia, a fresh college grad full of energy. They didn't know her, not really, but they respected her. For her work ethic, her poise, her silence. Instructors called her composed, detailed, polished. No one suspected who she really was, except maybe Regina Winters. Regina, the lead trainer, had sharp eyes and a sharper memory. One afternoon, she watched Kennedy too long after a service demonstration. "You ever worked in aviation before?" she asked. Kennedy shook her head. "Hospitality, hotels, but I've always loved flying." Regina's eyes narrowed. "You learn fast." Kennedy smiled. "Fast learner, good listener." Regina didn't push further, but from then on, Kennedy felt the weight of observation. Graduation day arrived. Of 28 trainees, only 17 remained. Kennedy, Alexis, was assigned to a premium route, Atlanta to New York, under the command of Rick Donovan, a senior attendant with 22 years in the air. Regina handed her the schedule and a short note. "High standards. You'll be tested." She didn't know then that Regina was more than a trainer. She was a gatekeeper, one of the many mid-level enablers preserving the very culture Alexis had come to dismantle, and she had just placed Alexis in the lion's den. In her temporary housing that night, Alexis laid out her uniform for the next morning. Polished shoes, crisp scarf, regulation lipstick shade. She stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back wasn't Alexis Brooks, Fortune cover star, aviation icon, keynote speaker. She was Kennedy Williams, junior flight attendant, unremarkable, unseen. And that was exactly how it had to be. Because only from the shadows can you truly observe the darkness. And Alexis was ready to see it all. "Good morning, trainees. Please line up in alphabetical order by last name." The voice of Regina Winters cracked like a whip through the training center auditorium. Kennedy Williams, formerly known to the world as Alexis Brooks, slid into line between Jordan Nguyen and Tammy Baker, clutching her neatly packed service manual. It was day one of Avora's flight attendant training, and already the hierarchy was forming. You could see it in the way certain trainees rolled their eyes, whispered judgments, or assessed uniforms for flaws. Some came in with prior aviation experience. Others were green. But Kennedy? She was the anomaly. To them, She was a mid-30s woman making a career switch from hotel management. Quiet, mature, too composed. The others talked about Netflix shows and dating apps. She observed, listened, filed every comment like evidence. Regina continued, "Half of you won't make it to graduation. Some because you won't be good enough, others because you won't want it badly enough. Either way, that door behind you," she pointed to the exit, "is always open." No one moved. Kennedy exhaled softly. Here we go. The first week was grueling. 8-hour days on emergency procedures, evacuation protocols, and safety drills. They learned how to disarm a door, deliver CPR at 35,000 feet, and handle a lithium battery fire mid-air. Kennedy excelled, quietly. She didn't dominate, but her answers were precise. Her drills, flawless. Her uniform, perfect. It didn't go unnoticed. "Miss Williams," Regina said during a door operation simulation. "That was smooth. You sure you've never opened one of these before?" "Just good muscle memory," Kennedy replied with a neutral smile. But she could feel it. Regina watching, testing, prodding. The other instructors noticed too. On day 4, a younger male trainer, Kyle, with too much gel in his hair and too little patience, called her overprepared. "And we want teamwork here, not personal glory," he told the class. "Some of you," he looked directly at her, "need to remember this isn't a solo mission." Interesting, Kennedy thought. They're already pushing back. By the second week, social lines had hardened. There were the fast friends, Tammy, Jordan, Sophia, and a few others, who clicked naturally. There were the tryhards, always volunteering for every role play. Then there were the complainers, always questioning why they had to memorize FAA codes. Kennedy fit with none of them. She was pleasant, helpful, but distant. A phantom presence, just the way she needed to be. During lunch breaks, she sat near Tammy and Jordan, listening more than speaking. Tammy was maternal, sweet, constantly checking on everyone. Jordan had the calm of a combat medic. Both began to admire Kennedy, though they didn't understand her completely. "You ever think you're too polished for this job?" Jordan asked one afternoon, poking at his grilled chicken. Kennedy raised an eyebrow. "What makes you say that?" "I don't know. You just carry yourself different, like you've already been in charge of something." She chuckled. "I've been in charge of a front desk. Maybe that counts." He shrugged. "Just saying, you don't talk like someone starting over." "Because I'm not," she thought. "I'm re-entering." The twist came on day 9. Regina walked into the classroom, followed by a man in a tailored navy suit. Tall, mid-40s, silver temples, eyes that scanned like scanners. "This," Regina announced, "is Mr. Holden Wright, Senior Coordinator for Field Crew Placement. He'll be observing this week's service drills." Kennedy's stomach dropped. Just a fraction. Not from fear, from calculation. Holden Wright. She hadn't seen him in 3 years. He used to be the Vice President of Field Operations at Avora. Brilliant with numbers, notorious for his sharp tongue, and deeply opposed to her promotion to CEO. When she restructured the leadership team to eliminate toxic silos, he was one of the first to go. Voluntarily, technically, but not without bitterness. Now he was back, and the look in his eyes as he scanned the trainees paused just a second too long when they landed on her. Recognition, suppressed surprise, then strategy. He didn't say anything, just gave a curt nod and walked to the back of the room. Kennedy returned to her notebook, heart rate steady, face unreadable. Over the next few days, Wright lingered at the edge of every exercise. He never addressed Kennedy directly, but she felt his presence, his scrutiny. During wine service training, he watched as she decanted a mock Merlot with professional grace. During turbulent simulations, he scribbled notes as she calmed a fake panicked passenger with practiced empathy. And then came the first move. During break, Kennedy found her locker ajar. Inside, her name tag had been moved. Someone had taken it off the magnetic backing and placed it upside down. Not dramatic, just wrong. She fixed it and said nothing. Later that day, Tammy whispered, "Weird question, but did Regina call you Alexis this morning?" Kennedy froze. "No. Why?" "I could have sworn I heard her say it under her breath when you walked by. Then she changed it quick." Kennedy smiled faintly. "Probably her mistake. I get that a lot." But internally, alarms were going off. If Regina and Wright were comparing notes, she was exposed, or at least suspected. That night, she encrypted a voice memo to Elise. "We have a breach. Holden Wright is in training. I think he's piecing it together." The next day, Wright requested to lead the beverage cart exercise himself. "Miss Williams," he said, finally addressing her directly, "you'll be working the right aisle. Let's see how you handle premium cabin etiquette." She didn't flinch. "Yes, sir," he smirked. "Don't call me sir. I don't work for you." That was the first overt jab. The rest came in layers, nitpicking her phrasing, questioning her grip on the glass stem, challenging her on service order. But she didn't break. She played the role, overqualified, slightly deferential, always professional. After class, Wright lingered by the exit. As she passed, he said softly, "Aren't you tired of pretending to be someone you're not?" She looked him dead in the eye. "That's an interesting question, coming from someone who reinvented himself after being demoted." He blinked, just for a second. Then she walked away. The email came in at 3:12 p.m. sharp. Subject: Assignment confirmation. ATL JFK Premium Routes. Beneath it, 2 lines that would change everything. Crew lead, Rick Donovan. Designation: a team rotation. Alexis stared at the screen, the corners of her lips tightening just slightly. Rick Donovan. The name wasn't new. She'd seen it pop up in nearly every internal audit flagged over the past year. Passenger complaints, crew turnover, subtle trends of racial bias. But every time, the paper trail fizzled. Clean service records, high satisfaction ratings, whispered praise from mid-level managers. Publicly, he was a star. Privately, she suspected he was the spider at the center of a quiet, rotting web. And now, she'd been invited into it. Her first official day on crew began in the shadows, literally. The flight left Atlanta just after dawn. The crew lounge buzzed with sleepy chatter and the scent of burnt coffee. Kennedy Williams, in a crisp uniform and flawless bun, stepped through the frosted doors, dragging her regulation carry-on behind her. "Williams?" a voice called out. She turned. Rick Donovan stood near the sign-in station, arms folded, expression unreadable. Mid-50s, tall, salt and pepper hair slicked back. His uniform was immaculate. His name badge gleamed. His posture screamed confidence born from impunity. "Yes," she replied, offering a professional smile. "Reporting for 11:42 to JFK." Rick gave a single nod. "First class, with me." Behind him, the rest of the team assembled. Diane Morrison, in her 40s, lips tight with disapproval. Sandra Patel, younger, quieter, a flicker of kindness behind cautious eyes. And Michael Levine, wiry and distracted, already sipping from a thermos. Rick didn't introduce them. He simply said, "Briefing, now." They gathered at a round table. Rick began rattling off assignments with military precision. Diane and Sandra, main cabin. Michael, galley. Williams, you're with me up front. A pause. Diane raised a brow. "I thought I was rotating into first this month." Rick glanced at his tablet. "Schedule changed. Orders from above." Diane didn't argue out loud, but her eyes found Kennedy's and narrowed. So it begins, Alexis thought. The pre-flight briefing was disturbingly efficient. Rick spoke in coded language. "Focus on our priorities," he said, pointing at the manifest. "Regulars are marked with stars. Handle with care." The stars were almost exclusively white, older, and male. The others, professional, courteous, No over-service. Keep it balanced. Balanced, Alexis knew, was code for cold. Reserved, distant. Enough to say, we served them, but never enough to make them feel welcomed. Rick passed the manifest to her. Got it? She scanned it quickly. Diamond and Platinum members of color were unmarked. Passengers with surnames like Chen, Robinson, Ahmed. No stars, no notes. Invisible loyalty. Yes, she replied calmly. Understood. But inside, she was logging everything. Boarding began. Rick greeted favored passengers like old friends. Mr. Livingston, back for the Monday run, I see. Scotch as usual? Ms. Friedman, let me hang your coat personally. He beamed at them, made small talk, touched shoulders. Then came Dr. Regina Lewis. Black, poised, diamond member. Rick's tone dropped. 2 Ds on your right. No name, no smile, no eye contact. Alexis stepped forward. Good morning, Dr. Lewis. May I offer you a pre-departure beverage, champagne, or our signature morning cocktail? The woman blinked, surprised, then smiled. Just orange juice, thank you. Rick gave her a sharp glance. Let's keep service moving, he said under his breath. Alexis nodded. Of course. But she saw it. And so did Dr. Lewis. Throughout the 2-hour flight, Alexis documented every interaction in her mind. Refills came slower to passengers of color. Requests were forgotten. Napkins delivered with less care. Meal options ran out mysteriously. Even Sandra, who had shown warmth earlier, followed Rick's unspoken rules. Her smiles dimmed when facing non-white passengers. Her tone clipped. Michael stayed in the galley, quiet, efficient, and complicit. Rick, meanwhile, ruled the aisle like a king in a sky palace. Halfway through service, Alexis offered a refill to a Latino businessman in 3B. Before he could answer, Rick stepped in. I'll take it from here, he said smoothly. Why don't you check on 4A? It wasn't a request. She moved slowly, then turned to glance back. Rick was already leaning over the man, engaging in brief, empty banter, then moving on without serving him. Control, Alexis thought. Every move in this cabin is orchestrated, not just service, perception. At JFK, the flight landed ahead of schedule. Rick dismissed the crew with a wave. Debrief later. We're back on the same route tomorrow. Same assignments. Alexis started to leave, but he called her back. Williams. She turned. You've got potential, he said. Composed, sharp. First class needs that. Just remember, don't overthink the rhythm. We all serve the same airline, but not every passenger deserves the same performance. She met his gaze, carefully neutral. Understood. He smiled, but his eyes held warning. He's watching me, she realized, and not just him. Later that night in her crew apartment, Alexis opened the secure communication app Elise had set up. She logged notes, marked patterns, flagged names. Then, a message popped up. Unknown sender. One line. Nice debut, Kennedy. Welcome to the real Avora. Attached, a grainy photo of her on the flight, pouring a drink. Angle, upper galley. It wasn't from a passenger. It was from a crew member. Someone was documenting her. The next day, the tension in the first-class cabin was sharper than usual. Rick was in a mood. He didn't bark orders. He didn't need to. He had mastered the art of quiet control, the kind that suffocates without raising its voice. And today, he was watching Kennedy Williams closer than ever. Alexis moved carefully. Every pore, every greeting, every gesture calibrated. She knew the difference between being observed and being hunted. And right now, she was prey in uniform. It happened just after breakfast service. Seat 2A, an older black woman traveling alone, diamond status, polite but assertive, asked for the vegetarian meal option that had been promised at booking. Rick glanced at the manifest, then back at her. Unfortunately, that option's no longer available. You can have the chicken or nothing. Alexis hesitated. Actually, Rick, I believe there's one vegetarian tray left in galley stock. I can warm it. He turned to her slowly, the edge in his voice like ice. Did I ask for your input, Williams? The entire front cabin went still. Alexis nodded once. No, sir. Then follow the service plan. He looked back at the passenger. I'm sorry, ma'am. Our inventory is limited. The woman's face didn't change, but Alexis saw it. The tiny flicker of recognition. The same flicker she'd seen in so many eyes. This, again. Disrespect, dressed as policy. Denial, delivered with a smile. Later, as Alexis delivered the chicken dish with quiet grace, the woman whispered, "Thank you for trying." Alexis smiled tightly. "You deserve better." Rick didn't say another word to her for the rest of the flight. That night, alone in her crew quarters, Alexis locked the door, closed the blinds, and pulled out a small satellite phone from her emergency bag. Not company issued, not traceable. A secure line built for one purpose. She dialed a number. No name saved, just a string of digits committed to memory since she was 16. One ring, two. Then a warm, firm voice answered. "Alexis." The sound of it unraveled something tight in her chest. "Hey, Mom." Justice Brooks didn't ask how she was. She never did. She asked better questions. "What's happened?" Alexis sat on the edge of her narrow bed. "It's active. The discrimination isn't just real. It's structured, protected. They've built a caste system in the cabin, and they've weaponized subtlety to make it invisible." "Give me specifics." Alexis told her everything. The starred manifests, the suppression of service, Rick's power, the mid-level coordination, the surveillance. "And today?" Justice asked. "I challenged Rick. I tried to override one of his decisions. For a black woman who was being denied her meal, he shut me down in front of the entire cabin." There was a pause. Then, "What do you need?" Alexis exhaled. "Contingency support. If this escalates, if they try to remove me or smear me, I need you to activate the chain." "You're sure?" "I'm past sure. I'm furious." Justice Brooks didn't curse. She didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "Understood." Then Alexis added, "And one more thing. I need you to reach out to our friends at the Civil Rights Council. Quietly. Just say the word, Avora." "That's all they'll need," her mother replied. And just like that, a new web began to spin. One not built on whispers and bias, but on law and precedent. Justice Brooks had been a federal judge for over 20 years. Before that, she'd been a civil rights attorney with the fire of Thurgood Marshall and the precision of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She didn't just win cases, she redefined standards. And now, her daughter was asking for something she had never asked for before: backup. So she would give it. Back in Atlanta, 2 days later, Rick stood at the crew check-in desk, sipping black coffee, scanning the morning manifest. His expression shifted just slightly when he saw Kennedy's name still listed. He leaned toward Diane. "Still with us, huh? Thought the rookie might transfer out after that little moment in 2A. Diane smirked. "Maybe she likes the abuse," Rick chuckled darkly. "Or maybe she's waiting for a promotion." They didn't notice Sandra nearby, watching quietly, or that Michael from the galley had started texting less. The team was beginning to crack, and Alexis could feel it. That same morning, a formal-looking man in a Navy suit walked into Avora headquarters in Midtown. His badge read, Marcus Holt, Department of Transportation, Civil Rights Division. He had an appointment, not with HR, with legal. And he brought questions, quiet questions. Nothing official, not yet. But questions with weight. Back in flight, Alexis received a message on her crew tablet. An internal memo from an unnamed supervisor requesting standardized documentation of service inconsistencies for quality assurance purposes. She smiled. That was Justice's doing. The wheels were turning. Later that week, after another subtle confrontation with Rick, this time about offering assistance to a South Asian man with a disability, Alexis returned to her room and found an envelope slid under her door. No return address. Inside, a note. You're not the only one watching. Some of us want change too. Attached, a photocopy of a service log showing meal discrepancies across 5 flights. Anonymous, but clearly internal. Alexis sat down slowly. The silence she'd walked into was no longer silent. Something had begun. By her 6th week in uniform, Alexis had grown used to the rhythm of the flights. The performative greetings, the coded glances, the quiet acts of exclusion executed with robotic precision. She'd memorized every nuance of Rick Donovan's power plays, every tactical silence Diane deployed like a cold blade. And every moment Sandra hesitated before doing the right thing, but what she hadn't counted on was Ashley. Ashley Monroe was the kind of flight attendant new hires aspired to be. Young, cheerful, picture-perfect in uniform, and always eager to help. She joined the crew rotation in week 5, replacing a senior attendant on medical leave. "First time on the A-team?" she beamed during her first briefing, clutching a stainless steel tumbler and iPad. Rick gave her a curt nod, but his eyes softened just slightly. "Stick close to Williams," he said. "She's still learning our rhythm." Alexis offered her a polite smile. "Welcome aboard." Ashley smiled back, too wide, too bright, and far too confident for someone who was supposedly new to the high-pressure world of first class. At first, Ashley played the role of innocent perfectly. She asked just the right amount of questions, flubbed the order of service just enough to seem new but not incompetent. She offered help with carts, made small talk in the galley, and laughed at Rick's tired jokes. But Alexis noticed things. Ashley's iPad was always open, even when it didn't need to be. Her crew tablet battery never ran low, despite constant note-taking. And, during one service, Alexis watched her subtly tilt her uniform name badge toward a first-class panel, revealing a micro mic tucked beneath the plastic. Most people wouldn't have noticed, but Alexis had worn that same model of discreet recording gear when briefing Congress during anti-discrimination hearings. She didn't just recognize the mic, she recognized its purpose. That night, Alexis ran Ashley's name through the secure app Elise had built. There were no red flags, no lawsuits, no prior complaints, no digital shadow. That, more than anything, was a problem. Everyone has a shadow, a tagged photo, an article, a social post. Ashley Monroe had none, except for one small hit. Monroe Aviation Scholarship recipient, 2020, Avora Foundation. The name Monroe rang a bell. Alexis opened the archived board roster. There it was, Calvin Monroe, former chairman of Avora Airlines. Retired 2 years ago, right before Alexis was named CEO. And not quietly. He'd been the loudest voice against her appointment. Unproven. Too young. Too radical. His words had been coded but clear. She didn't belong. And now his granddaughter was flying under Rick Donovan, armed with a mic. This isn't a coincidence, Alexis thought. It's a setup. Over the next 3 flights, she watched Ashley work. She was always nearby when Alexis served passengers of color, always within earshot when Alexis defied Rick's subtle instructions, and always smiling. Never too obvious, never overtly confrontational. She asked casual questions, laced with bait. "Hey, Kennedy, don't you think that woman in 3B was kind of entitled? Do you think we go too far trying to impress certain passengers? Rick's old school, huh? But he does know how to keep order." Alexis answered neutrally each time, never took the bait. But she knew the game had shifted. Now, it wasn't just about surviving Rick's shadow system. Now, someone was building a file on her. After a long JFK return flight, Alexis stepped off the aircraft and headed toward the crew lockers. Ashley followed close behind. "Hey," she said, "mind if I ride the shuttle with you?" Alexis hesitated. "Actually, I've got a call." Ashley tilted her head. "You sure? I wanted to ask you something about wine service timing. Rick said you used to work in hotels, right?" Alexis gave her the kind of smile that was all surface. That's right. But I wasn't a sommelier. Ashley laughed, a little too hard. Got it. No problem. But her eyes flicked to Alexis's bag, where the encrypted tablet sat zipped between a toothbrush and a fake journal. That night, Alexis sent a voice file to her mother. She's not just a crew member, she whispered into the mic. She's an operative, planted, recording, possibly feeding data back to Rick or someone else, possibly Monroe. Justice's response came 2 hours later. Confirmed. Ashley Monroe is Calvin's granddaughter. He's been lobbying quietly to return to an advisory role at Avora. Word is he's building a case against you, one that proves you orchestrated a hostile shift in service philosophy that alienates traditional clientele. Alexis felt her stomach tighten. They're not just protecting the status quo, she muttered. They're trying to stage a coup. Yes, Justice said. And Ashley's job isn't to spy. It's to bait me into breaking protocol. The next morning, Ashley arrived late to briefing. Her ponytail was messier than usual, and her smile a little forced. Sorry, traffic, she chirped. Rick didn't blink. Everyone makes mistakes once. But Alexis saw it, the flicker of irritation in his eyes. Ashley wasn't delivering fast enough, or she was drifting too close to exposure. Either way, their alliance was thinning, and that meant Alexis had one chance to use it. She made a plan. Mid-flight, as Ashley approached her with coffee, Alexis leaned in slightly. Hey, she whispered. Off the record? Ashley blinked. Sure. Alexis glanced toward the cockpit. There's something off about Rick's manifests. Some names are marked, some aren't. Have you noticed? Ashley's smile froze. What do you mean? Alexis dropped her voice. Just keep an eye out. Some of us are starting to wonder if he's misusing his influence. Ashley's eyes narrowed, calculating. Then she nodded. Thanks. I'll look. She turned away, fast. Too fast. Good, Alexis thought. Let her run with that, because every spy needs to feel ahead before they're turned inside out. The flight from Atlanta to New York was already tense before boarding began. Alexis could feel it in Rick's clipped tone, in Diane's pursed lips, in the way Ashley avoided eye contact for the first time in days. Something was shifting beneath the surface, cracks forming in the polished facade of the A-Team. They gathered for briefing in the crew lounge. Rick spoke fast, his voice sharp. 2A and 2B are returning VIPs. You give them your best. 3D, downgrade due to aircraft switch. Don't overservice. Let them know we're doing our best under constraints. Keep them quiet. Alexis scanned the manifest. Seat 3D. Dr. Malcolm Hart. African American. Age 54. Diamond status. Neurosurgeon. Loyal to Avora for over 15 years. Rick's designation. Downgrade. No mention of his title. No note of his loyalty. Just a label designed to justify minimal effort. Alexis looked up. He's Diamond. Shouldn't we be offering pre-departure choice? Rick didn't look at her. Not when they're on a comped upgrade. Even if they're loyalists? Rick turned slowly. You want to run this briefing? No, Alexis said coolly. Just asking for consistency. Rick smiled, tight and controlled. We're consistent. We reward legacy. And we know who built this airline. During boarding, Alexis moved with calm precision. She hung coats, offered champagne, kept her tone even. But her eyes tracked everything, especially Rick. He greeted the white male executives with warmth and familiarity. Mr. Kepler, welcome back. Mrs. Denton, we've stocked your preferred Pinot. But when Dr. Hart approached, Rick barely lifted his eyes. 3D, left side. No name, no warmth. Just numbers and silence. Dr. Hart didn't protest. He'd been here before. His face betrayed nothing, but Alexis saw it. The quiet sigh, the subtle bracing. She moved quickly. Dr. Hart, she said gently. Welcome back to Avora. May I offer you a pre-departure beverage? We've got a lovely citrus spritzer today, or a chilled sparkling water if you prefer. He looked up, startled. Thank you. I'll try the spritzer. She nodded, then turned toward the galley. only to find Rick standing there, blocking her path. "That seat's a downgrade," he said under his breath. "No personalized service. He's a Diamond member. On a comped upgrade. This isn't your call." Alexis met his gaze. "Respect isn't conditional." Rick leaned in, voice just above a whisper. "Don't forget who you're talking to." Passengers were watching now. She saw the flickers of attention, glances from 2A, from 4C, from a woman near the galley door who lowered her phone slightly. Alexis didn't back down. She lowered her voice to match his. "And don't forget who you're being watched by." She served Dr. Hart his drink. Rick didn't stop her, but the temperature in the cabin dropped another 10 degrees. The flight lifted off in silence. Meal service began. Diane muttered to Sandra, "She's getting reckless." Ashley watched from the galley, tapping quietly on her iPad. Rick simmered. Then it happened. Mid-meal, Dr. Hart politely requested an additional bread roll. Rick, passing nearby, leaned over. "Sorry, we're out." Alexis blinked. She had counted the rolls herself. Without a word, she went to the galley, retrieved one, warmed it gently, and returned. "Here you are, Dr. Hart," she said. "Fresh." Rick saw. He moved fast. He stopped in the aisle beside them, towering over her. "Williams, galley, now!" The passengers froze. Alexis stood her ground. "I'm serving a guest." "You're out of line." "I'm doing my job." And then a voice interrupted. "Excuse me." A woman in 2C stood up, calm and clear. Late 40s, elegant gray pantsuit, no visible badge of authority, except the one Alexis recognized in her voice. "I'd like to speak to both of you," the woman said. Rick blinked. "Ma'am, is there an issue?" She pulled a small card from her coat pocket. "Cassandra Ellis, Board of Directors, Special Committee on Ethics." Rick paled. Alexis stayed perfectly still. Cassandra turned to her. "Ms. Williams, continue your service, please. I've seen enough." Then she looked at Rick. "You, galley, now." Inside the galley, Cassandra dropped her smile entirely. "You just made a mistake," she said. "A visible one." Rick swallowed. "I didn't realize." "No, you didn't. That's the problem." Cassandra pulled out a notepad. "You've been under informal review for 2 months, multiple red flags, but we needed something overt." She looked toward the cabin. "You just gave it to us." Rick glanced at Ashley, standing nearby. She said nothing, didn't even blink, just turned away. Alexis, meanwhile, returned to her aisle. Dr. Hart gave her a small nod. She returned it, but inside, her heart pounded. Not in fear, in timing. Because Cassandra Ellis wasn't just any board member, she was the one Alexis had briefed 6 weeks ago, before training even began. The only board contact cleared by Elise. The only one who could trigger internal escalation without tipping off senior staff. This had been part of the plan. Just not so soon. After landing at JFK, Rick was asked to remain behind. Cassandra walked him off the plane. Passengers whispered. Alexis helped gather coats like nothing had happened. But the cabin had changed. Dr. Hart smiled as he exited. "So, you're more than you appear," he said softly. Alexis gave him a small wink. "Aren't we all?" That night, in her quarters, she opened a message from Cassandra. "Next steps authorized. Full audit. Legal clearance pending. Stay in place. They'll panic now. And when they do, we catch everyone." Alexis leaned back in her chair, the quiet satisfaction of strategy unfolding exactly as planned. Because today had been loud. Tomorrow would be systemic. Rick Donovan was off the flight roster by sunrise. "Pending investigation," the official notice read. The message went out to select crew via encrypted internal channels. Concise, bureaucratic, sterile. But its ripple was anything but. By noon, the crew lounge was buzzing. Diane's tight-lipped silence spoke volumes. Sandra avoided eye contact. Michael kept to himself, muttering about witch hunts. Ashley? She was quiet. Too quiet. And Alexis, still under the name Kennedy Williams, kept working, pouring coffee, checking manifests, keeping her hands steady even as her mind braced for the next strike. Because it wasn't over, and she knew it. The next blow came quietly, almost elegantly. 3 days after Rick's removal, she was summoned to a private conference room at Avora's operations office in Queens. Not the HR floor, not legal, internal security. Waiting inside, a square-jawed man in a gray suit and a woman with wire-rimmed glasses who didn't smile. "We've received a tip," the man said, not bothering with small talk. "A tip?" Alexis asked. "Allegations that you've been accessing passenger records outside of your assignment authority, sharing them off-platform." The woman slid a file across the table. "Anonymous submission with screenshots." Alexis opened it. She stared at the pages, fabricated logs, falsified timestamps, emails that looked authentic, but weren't. And then her eyes narrowed. Because she knew the code structure, these weren't random screenshots. They were crafted deliberately. "Do you deny accessing these profiles?" the woman asked. "I deny everything in this file," Alexis said, voice cool. "This data's been manipulated." The man raised an eyebrow. "You'll understand. We'll have to suspend your access to the crew portal while we investigate." "Understood." But inside, her heart began to pound. Not from guilt, but from the sheer audacity of the move. This wasn't retaliation. It was sabotage. She left the office without protest. No drama, no denial. But as she exited the building, a message popped onto her secure tablet. "He planted the seed. Now he wants you to drown in it." It was unsigned, but Alexis knew who it came from. Cassandra. Back in her apartment, Alexis pieced the puzzle together. Rick had known he would be watched. Cassandra had confirmed as much. He'd felt the net closing. So, what had he done? He'd flipped the playbook, created a reverse scandal. And not just any scandal. A data leak. The one thing Avora couldn't ignore. The one sin that would justify immediate dismissal, even prosecution. Because nothing threatened a premium airline more than the idea of customer data being mishandled. And now, Alexis was standing in the center of a narrative he had written. She called Elise. "I've been framed." Elise's voice was calm, but the undertone was electric. "How?" "He fabricated portal access logs, made it look like I exported passenger data." Elise cursed under her breath. "That's federal territory. If they escalate this, it's not just internal discipline, it's a felony." "I know. Do you have your activity logs?" "Not the system ones, but I've been running my own encrypted tracking." "Elise, I never accessed those files." "Good. Keep everything. Don't log back in until I say." Alexis closed her eyes. "There's more." "What?" "I think he's been recording us." It was a suspicion at first, born from Rick's obsessive control and the unnatural angles he always seemed to appear from. But now, it clicked. The timing, the specificity of the fabricated logs, the proof that just happened to appear after his suspension. Rick wasn't just reacting, he'd prepared for this. That night, Alexis did something she hadn't done since her first day in training. She cried. Not for long, not loud, but real tears. Because the plan had been perfect, surgical, strategic, legal, and still, he had gotten there first. She had evidence. She had allies. But now, she also had doubt. From executives, from board members who didn't know her full identity, from whisper networks. She was one headline away from destruction, and Rick knew it. The next morning, Cassandra called. "I'm escalating your clearance. We're invoking emergency review. Even if legal moves to terminate me, we'll override." Alexis swallowed. "There's something else." "I'm listening. I think Rick's been running unauthorized surveillance." "You're sure?" "No, but I need to be. I need access to his crew gear locker." Cassandra didn't answer right away. Then, "You'll have it by tonight." That evening, under the guise of retrieving misplaced items, Alexis was escorted by a quiet security officer to Rick Donovan's personal locker in the Atlanta base. What she found stopped her breath. 2 micro camera units, battery packs, a rolling suitcase lined with foam cutouts, and, in a false panel, an SD card labeled Cabin 6W. She slid it into her portable reader. What she saw made her knees go weak. Footage of her, of Sandra, of Diane, of Ashley. Conversations in the galley. Coded language, snide remarks, subtle discrimination, all captured. And then, her, sitting in crew quarters, alone, typing, time-stamped, doctored, used to forge access logs. It was all there, everything. And in that moment, Alexis realized, Rick hadn't just tried to bury her. He'd buried dozens. He'd collected insurance on everyone. And now, that insurance would become evidence. The SD card lay on the table like a loaded weapon. Alexis sat in the dim light of her crew apartment, eyes fixed on the paused footage. Rick Donovan, leaning in close to a galley panel, adjusting a micro camera, unaware or uncaring that he was being recorded as he recorded everyone else. The layers of irony would have been laughable if the implications weren't so grave. She had the proof of surveillance, of manipulation, of the digital frame-up against her, but she needed corroboration, something irrefutable, something from inside the circle of rot, because a single whistleblower was noise. 2, truth. The next morning, the call came from a blocked number. She hesitated, then picked up. "Is this Kennedy?" the voice asked, tentative, gravelly. "This is she," Alexis said carefully. Pause. "You don't know me. Name's Donna Keller. I used to run Rick's flight crew rotation, until I aged out of first class, as he liked to say." Alexis sat up straighter. "I've been watching what's happening, what they did to you, what they've done for years." Alexis blinked. "Why now?" "Because I have something." 2 hours later, they met in the parking lot of a church near Avora's secondary hub. It was quiet, unassuming, a fitting place for redemption. Donna Keller was in her late 50s, worn but composed, with the kind of posture that comes from years of straightening her back against discrimination. She didn't waste time. "This," she said, handing over a USB drive, "is every off-duty briefing I recorded in my last 3 years on Rick's crew." Alexis blinked. "You recorded him?" "Not officially. I started doing it after I caught him deleting incident reports. At first, it was just insurance. Then, it became a habit." Alexis plugged the drive into her encrypted laptop. Audio clips began scrolling down the screen. Hundreds. She clicked the first one. Rick's voice, unmistakable. "3C's a downgrade. Don't bother. Focus on Livingston. He's worth 6 figures in tips this year." Another. "Passengers of color in first. Do the minimum. If they complain, they're already looking for trouble." Another. "Keep the newbies away from my cabin unless they've been prepped. We don't need any diversity heroes up here." Alexis swallowed. It was worse than she imagined. And then, a voice she hadn't expected. Regina Winters. "You're lucky legal's on our side, Rick. If this ever gets out, it won't," he cut in. "HR loves me. They're not touching a crew that brings in the highest scores in premium." Donna leaned against the hood of her car. "I brought it to my manager last year. He said it was out of context, told me to retire gracefully. So I did." Alexis looked up. "You kept this all this time?" Donna nodded. "Because I was waiting for someone who wouldn't just bury it again." That night, Alexis submitted a secure report to Elise, attaching the SD card from Rick's locker and Donna's recordings. Subject line: Comprehensive Evidence Package, Discrimination and Retaliation Network, Avora Airlines. Destination: Federal Human Rights Commission, Department of Transportation, Civil Aviation Ethics Division. And internally, Avora's Board Compliance Office. Within 2 hours, Cassandra Ellis responded. "Received. Emergency session triggered. Be prepared for public testimony. We're about to make history." By the following morning, Alexis's suspension was lifted. No public announcement, no apology, yet. But her credentials were reactivated, her clearance restored, and the whispers shifted. She walked into the crew lounge with her head high, uniform pressed, name tag shining. Tammy hugged her. Jordan gave her a fist bump. Even Sandra, cautious and quiet, mouthed, "Thank you." Ashley wasn't there. Neither was Diane. And Rick, still suspended, but not for long, because what was coming wasn't an investigation. It was a reckoning. Cassandra arranged a closed-door board session that Friday. Alexis arrived early, in her civilian suit for the first time in weeks. No apron, no bun, just the woman who'd built Avora into the standard of modern air travel, and who had been forced to destroy parts of it to save its soul. She played 6 audio clips, showed stills from Rick's hidden cameras, cited policy after policy. Silence followed. Then one board member, a man who had once questioned her appointment, cleared his throat. "I'm ashamed." Alexis didn't blink. "I'm not here for apologies," she said. "I'm here for accountability." The motion passed unanimously. Full termination of Rick Donovan and his known collaborators. Immediate ethics audit of all mid-level management. Suspension of Regina Winters pending inquiry. Mandatory retraining for all premium cabin crew. And finally, authorization for Alexis Brooks to spearhead operational reform across all Avora flights. The room didn't clap. It wasn't that kind of victory. But as Alexis walked out of that boardroom, sunlight striking her face through the tower's glass atrium, she felt it. The weight shifting, not off her shoulders, but finally off the passengers who had carried it for too long. The manifest for Flight 2201 from Atlanta to Chicago looked ordinary at first glance. 12 first-class passengers, 45 in economy, standard crew rotation. But Alexis Brooks, now flying under her real name for the first time in months, knew better. This flight wasn't routine. It was a stage, carefully orchestrated, deliberately designed. And by the end of it, the curtain would fall on one of the longest-running discriminatory networks in modern aviation history. She arrived at the crew lounge wearing her flight uniform, but her badge now read, Alexis Brooks, EVP, Operations No More Cover, No More Aliases. The moment she walked through the door, heads turned. Sandra, seated near the lockers, stood up instantly. Michael looked down, guilt etched into the lines under his eyes. Diane froze mid-sentence and didn't finish her thought. Ashley, gone, removed from roster quietly the day before. And Rick? Already standing at the briefing table, arms crossed, trying to pretend the world hadn't shifted beneath his feet. "Well," he said, lips curling in a half-smile, "the prodigal exec returns." Alexis didn't flinch. "Let's begin." As they sat, Alexis led the pre-flight briefing, but it wasn't like any other. "This is Flight 2201, ATL 2ORD, she began, her voice calm, even. Estimated duration, 1 hour, 57 minutes. Weather, clear, no turbulence expected. She paused. "And today, we'll be operating under direct observation from senior leadership and independent third-party media, present on board in non-disclosed seats." Diane's head whipped around. Rick's slow smile vanished. "We're also carrying multiple Avora stakeholders and civil rights observers." Michael raised his hand halfway. "This wasn't in the memo." "No," Alexis said, "because you don't get a memo for justice. You just show up for it." Rick stood slowly. "You're not leading this flight. I am." Alexis tilted her head. "Correction. You were." She pulled a folded sheet from her binder. "Effective immediately, Rick Donovan. Your clearance is suspended, your employment terminated, and you are relieved of duty under Title IX violation proceedings. This action is being enforced under Section 4 of the Federal Aviation Equal Treatment Mandate." He laughed, sharp, bitter. "You can't fire me on board." "That's not how this works." Alexis stepped aside. 2 uniformed federal marshals entered the lounge, silent and unblinking. Rick's eyes widened. They didn't handcuff him. They didn't need to. One marshal simply gestured to the door. "This way, sir." As Rick was led out, the room remained silent. But Alexis wasn't finished. "Diane Morrison," she said, turning to the blonde woman seated nearest. "Effective immediately, you are placed under review for complicity in a pattern of discriminatory service behavior. You will not be flying today." Diane stood up, fists clenched. "You set us up." "No," Alexis replied calmly. "You set yourselves up. I just brought the mirror." She nodded to a security officer waiting outside. Diane left, muttering curses under her breath. Only Sandra and Michael remained. Alexis looked at them. "You two still have a choice," she said. Sandra nodded, slow and solemn. "I'd like to stay and start again, the right way." Michael swallowed. "Same." Alexis handed them new briefing packets, clean slates, rewritten procedures, zero tolerance protocols. Then she walked them through the new first-class philosophy. Equal excellence, no exceptions. As boarding began, Alexis moved through the gate like any other crew member, but her presence was felt in every corner. Some passengers looked twice at her badge. A few whispered to one another, clearly recognizing the name. In 1A sat a civil rights attorney, flying anonymously. In 2C, a New York Times reporter under alias credentials. In 3D, a board member who'd once questioned her appointment. And scattered among economy and business class were others, camera-ready, note-taking, watching. This wasn't a press conference. It was something far more powerful, an unfiltered reckoning in real time. During service, Alexis worked side by side with Sandra and Michael, not as a boss, but as a model. She greeted every passenger by name, explained meal options with warmth and clarity. When a young black man in 2B requested a pillow, she delivered it personally, smiling, present, engaged. And when a white businessman in 1C asked for a last-minute beverage switch, she fulfilled it just as promptly, with no hierarchy of worth attached to her service. There was no favoritism, no coding, no calculation, just service. As they began descent, the cabin buzzed softly, not with discomfort, but with a kind of quiet awe. Passengers weren't used to this. To fairness that felt effortless, to dignity that didn't feel rare. Upon landing, the press emerged. Cameras, questions, flashbulbs. Alexis stepped in front of them in full uniform. No podium, no notes, just truth. "For years," she said, "Avara Airlines, like many institutions, believed silence was neutrality. But silence is complicity, and injustice, no matter how quietly performed, is still injustice." She paused. "Today, we took a step toward restoring trust in the skies. Not with apologies, but with action." A reporter shouted, "Why not just fire them quietly?" "Because that's how this started," she said. "With quiet, with comfort, with compromise." She scanned the crowd. "From this day forward, we will serve every passenger with the same level of excellence, because dignity is not a luxury, it's a standard." Behind her, the aircraft sat gleaming in the afternoon sun. Not just a vehicle, a symbol of what was broken and what had just begun to be rebuilt. It began with an email. Subject line: "New standards for a new era." Sender: Alexis Brooks, Executive Vice President, Avora Airlines. Within 3 hours, it had been opened by over 86% of Avora employees across 6 continents. In it, Alexis didn't speak as a corporate officer. She spoke as a witness, a survivor of the very culture she had been tasked to lead. And now, it's reformer. Effective immediately, the message read, a new service equity protocol would be rolled out across all domestic and international flights. A blind audit system would assign undercover evaluators of diverse backgrounds to fly all premium routes, tracking treatment by real experience, not surveys. A passenger respect charter would be posted at every gate and on board every aircraft, outlining Avora's commitment to unbiased, dignified service. A new position, Chief Inclusion Officer, would report directly to the CEO, with full oversight of crew assignments, promotion pathways, and incident investigations. And, for the first time in Avora history, flight crew promotion boards would include anonymous peer feedback, breaking the cycle of favoritism and legacy-only advancement. Behind these reforms stood a deeper change, one that couldn't be printed on memos or announced at press conferences. It was the change of tone, of ownership. And Alexis knew tone didn't change from top-down pressure. It changed by reshaping who stood at the top. Over the following months, the ripple effect took hold. Regina Winters was formally dismissed after internal records revealed years of suppressing service complaints and manipulating crew evaluations to favor traditional candidates. Rick Donovan, now under federal investigation for unlawful surveillance and discrimination, faced criminal charges for violating privacy laws and falsifying operational documents. 6 other managers quietly resigned. But Alexis didn't stop at removals. She was just as intentional about who she lifted up. In Miami, a Haitian-American crew supervisor named Nadine was promoted to oversee international first-class operations after scoring the highest in anonymous passenger evaluations. In Chicago, a senior attendant named Arturo, who had once been overlooked for promotion 6 times, was tapped to co-lead the Service Equity Council. In Dallas, Tammy, the sweet kindergarten teacher turned flight attendant who had once whispered encouragements during Alexis's training days, was offered a spot in the training design team. And in New York, Cassandra Ellis helped launch Avora's first Leadership Diversity Accelerator, bringing frontline crew into leadership mentoring for the first time in airline history. Alexis made a promise early on. The changes wouldn't just exist on paper. They had to exist in the air. So she flew, twice a week, unannounced, uniform on, observing, listening, sometimes serving. Passengers didn't always recognize her, and she didn't tell them, because service didn't need a title, it needed intention. One morning on a Los Angeles flight, Alexis walked into the galley and found Sandra wiping down surfaces, humming softly. Sandra turned, startled. "Oh, ma'am, sorry, I didn't know you were..." Alexis smiled. "Relax, I'm just another set of hands today." They worked side by side, in silence at first. Then Sandra said, "I was wrong. Back then, I didn't speak up." Alexis didn't respond right away. Then, "You're speaking now." Sandra nodded. "Thank you for not lumping us all together, for giving us a chance to prove who we really are." Alexis looked her in the eye. "That's all I ever wanted, for everyone to be treated for who they are, not what they look like." The passenger satisfaction ratings began climbing, but more telling were the unsolicited messages. From customers, from ex-employees returning to apply again, from passengers who said, "For the first time, I didn't feel like an intruder in first class." And the most powerful ones, they came from crew. "I stopped dreading putting on my uniform. I feel seen again. Thank you for making the sky feel safe. For us, too." Then came the day Alexis stood at the annual Global Aviation Ethics Summit. She wasn't meant to speak. She was just there to observe. But after whispers spread of her presence, the moderator asked if she'd like to address the room. Alexis stood. No notes, just heart. "I'm not here because of a title," she began. "I'm here because silence nearly destroyed the thing I loved most. An airline meant to connect people. And somewhere along the way, we forgot how we connect matters just as much as that we connect." She paused. "We rebuilt that, not through slogans, but through choices. Let this be your reminder. Excellence that only extends to some is not excellence. It's elitism." The room stood, and for a long moment, Alexis didn't speak. She simply looked around and let the echo of her truth settle in. Back at headquarters, a commemorative wall was unveiled, not of executives, but of crew. Faces from all backgrounds, all ranks. Smiling, working, leading. And above them, etched in glass, "Here, dignity isn't earned, it's honored." 1 year later, Flight 1142 from Atlanta to New York sat quietly at Gate C7, bathed in the amber glow of a late afternoon sun. From the terminal windows, the aircraft looked like any other, a sleek metal bird prepped for its next journey. But inside, something had shifted, something fundamental. In the first-class cabin, a crew moved with quiet precision, greeting passengers by name, adjusting blankets, pouring drinks with equal grace and attention. No glances of judgment, no hierarchy of worth. Just calm, consistent hospitality. And at the heart of it stood Alexis Brooks, wearing the Avora navy and gold uniform. For the very last time. The choice to fly one final rotation as a flight attendant had been hers alone. No announcement, no cameras, no media alert. Just her crew, her passengers, and her promise to finish where she'd started. She'd arrived early, before the rest of the team, and walked the length of the aircraft. Row by row, seat by seat, galley to cockpit. She touched every surface like a goodbye. 12 months ago, this same route had nearly broken her. Today, it stood as proof of everything they'd rebuilt. The crew for today's flight included Sandra, now a senior lead attendant, and Jordan, who had since transitioned from active duty to training consultant, shadowing new recruits. Tammy had flown in the day before, just to see Alexis off. Even Donna Keller had made the trip, sitting quietly in row 4A as a passenger. No badge, no rank, just presence. The boarding process moved smoothly. Diverse passengers took their seats without sideways glances. Families, executives, students, elders. Some offered smiles to the crew, some simply nodded, relaxed. They'd learned something over the past year, that when dignity becomes routine, comfort follows. Alexis stood near the galley as final boarding was called. She adjusted her tie, smoothed her skirt, then glanced at her reflection in the oven door. She didn't see the young, ambitious CEO trying to change a system. She didn't see the undercover agent on a mission. She saw a servant of people, a guardian of space, a protector of what flight was meant to be. Not elite, not exclusive, but liberating. Final call, doors to automatic, Sandra announced. Alexis nodded. Let's do this. During ascent, she assisted with drink service, helped an older woman stow her cane, greeted a teenage girl flying alone with reassuring calm. Each gesture was intentional, but effortless. There was no performance here, just presence. In seat 3D, a black man in a tailored gray suit watched her move down the aisle. He looked vaguely familiar. As Alexis offered him a water, he said, "Forgive me, but are you her?" Alexis raised an eyebrow. Her? The one who changed everything here. Alexis Brooks? She smiled softly. Depends who's asking. He chuckled. Dr. William Porter, cardiologist. You once served me a glass of Cabernet when someone said it was unavailable. Alexis blinked, then remembered. The lie, the twist, the quiet rebellion that began it all. It's good to see you again, Dr. Porter, she said warmly. He nodded. Better now. I've flown over 40 times this year. The difference is night and day. He looked around the cabin. You didn't just change the system, you gave it a soul. Somewhere over Virginia, the captain made a special announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to recognize one of our crew members today, Executive Vice President Alexis Brooks, flying her final rotation in uniform. Her leadership has shaped not just Avora, but the aviation industry at large. Applause spread through the cabin, soft at first, then rising like a crescendo. A few passengers stood. A woman in 1A clapped with tears in her eyes. A young man in 4F whispered, "That's her?" Alexis bowed her head slightly. She didn't need to speak. Her silence carried more than 1,000 speeches. Upon landing, the terminal gate was quiet, respectful. No media, no parade. But lining the ramp were dozens of Avora employees, from ground crew to senior pilots, each wearing a pin. Equal excellence. No exceptions. As Alexis exited the aircraft, she embraced Sandra, shook Jordan's hand, hugged Tammy so tightly neither of them could speak. Then she turned to the aircraft once more, placed her fingers gently on the Avora logo, and walked away. Weeks later, her office on the 58th floor remained uncluttered. She never liked decorations, only windows, wide panoramic views of sky and motion. But on her desk now sat one new item, a shadow box frame, holding three things: her first ID badge, Kennedy Williams, a folded copy of the Passenger Respect Charter, and a single napkin, marked with the wine stain she once cleaned from Dr. Porter's tray, the symbols of humility, transformation, and service. At a leadership summit 6 months later, she was invited to speak. She said only this: "We thought justice in the skies required grand gestures, but it started with remembering names, refusing to stay silent, and pouring the wine when someone else said it wasn't available." And then she stepped off stage. Alexis never stopped flying. Not as a crew member, but as a passenger, always in coach, always watching, always reminding the skies that power doesn't come from altitude, but from intention. And when people asked what legacy she hoped to leave behind, she said only this: that no one ever wonders if they belong at 35,000 feet again.